The shrill sound of a woman's voice pierced the tranquil morning air as she stormed across the lush green fields, her face twisted in a mask of outrage. "This is unacceptable. You're ruining the neighborhood." Karen, the self-appointed guardian of the affluent suburban community, had set her sights on the young couple's thriving farm, determined to put an end to their unsightly operation. Emily and Jack, the owners of the small organic farm, had poured their hearts and souls into building a sustainable business that nourished their local community. But their idyllic existence was about to be shattered by the unwelcome arrival of their HOA president, Karen. "This is a flagrant violation of our neighborhood covenants," Karen screeched, her manicured nails pointing accusingly at the rows of vibrant vegetables and the coops housing a handful of free-range chickens. "You're bringing down property values with your ridiculous farm." Emily, trying to remain calm, stepped forward, her voice firm yet measured. "Karen, this farm is our livelihood. We're providing fresh, healthy food to the community, and our neighbors love what we're doing here." But Karen was having none of it. "I don't care what your neighbors think," she spat. "You're disrupting the aesthetic of this neighborhood, and I won't stand for it. I'm calling the authorities right now." Jack, his brow furrowed with concern, placed a hand on Emily's shoulder, guiding her back. "Karen, please, let's talk about this. We can find a compromise that works for everyone." Karen's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a spiteful sneer. "The only compromise I'm interested in is you packing up and getting out of here. This farm is an eyesore, and it's going to be shut down, one way or another." With that, she whirled around, her designer heels clicking against the gravel as she stormed toward the gate, her phone already pressed to her ear. Emily and Jack watched, their hearts sinking, as they realized they were about to face the full force of Karen's wrath. In the distance, the faint wail of a siren signaled the arrival of the police, summoned by the HOA president's relentless crusade to rid the neighborhood of the unwelcome farm. Emily and Jack exchanged a worried glance, bracing themselves for the confrontation that was about to unfold. The police car pulled up to the farm's entrance, its lights flashing, as Karen stood by triumphantly. Emily and Jack, their hands clasped together, watched apprehensively as the officer stepped out of the vehicle and approached them. "Ma'am, sir, I've received a call about an alleged zoning violation on your property," the officer said, his voice calm and professional. "Can you tell me what's going on here?" Karen, seizing the opportunity, stepped forward, her voice dripping with false concern. "Officer, these people are running an illegal farm in a residential neighborhood. It's a complete eyesore and a detriment to our property values. I'm simply asking you to enforce the law and shut them down." Emily took a deep breath, her eyes pleading with the officer. "Officer, this is our livelihood. We're a small organic farm that provides fresh produce to our local community. We have all the necessary permits and licenses, and we're in full compliance with the zoning regulations." The officer listened intently, his brow furrowed in thought. He turned to Karen, his expression stern. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but unless there's clear evidence of a violation, I can't simply shut down a lawful business operation. These folks seem to be operating within the law." Karen's face flushed with indignation, her carefully crafted veneer of civility crumbling. "What? But they're ruining the neighborhood. You have to do something." The officer held up a hand, silencing her tirade. "Ma'am, I understand your concerns, but unless you can provide concrete proof of a violation, I'm afraid I can't take any action against this farm. My job is to uphold the law, not enforce your personal preferences." Emily and Jack exchanged a relieved glance, their grip on each other's hands tightening. They had weathered the storm, at least for now. But they knew that Karen, fuming with resentment, would not give up easily. As the police car drove away, Karen turned to the couple, her eyes narrowed to slits. "This isn't over," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "I'll find a way to shut you down, even if it's the last thing I do." Emily and Jack braced themselves for the inevitable. their determination to protect their farm only growing stronger in the face of Karen's relentless crusade. In the days that followed, Karen's campaign against the farm intensified. She began bombarding the local authorities with a barrage of complaints, citing everything from noise pollution to concerns about the farm's impact on the local wildlife. Emily and Jack watched helplessly as the bureaucratic red tape started to tighten around their beloved farm. Each time they received a notice from the city, their hearts sank a little further, and they found themselves spending more and more time navigating the maze of regulations and paperwork. "This is ridiculous," Jack exclaimed, his usually calm demeanor giving way to frustration. "We've done everything by the book, and now we're being harassed by this power-hungry HOA president." Emily, her eyes brimming with worry, placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "I know, honey, but we can't give up. This farm is our dream, and we're not going to let Karen destroy it without a fight." Determined to find a solution, the couple sought out the advice of their neighbor, Mrs. Perez, a kind-hearted elderly woman who had watched the farm grow from its humble beginnings. "You know, I've been talking to some of the other neighbors," Mrs. Perez said, her voice tinged with concern. "We're all really worried about what Karen is trying to do. This farm means so much to our community, and we're not going to let her get away with this." Emily's eyes widened with hope. "You mean the neighbors are willing to help us?" Mrs. Perez nodded, a mischievous twinkle in her eye. "Just leave it to us, my dears. We have a few tricks up our sleeves to deal with the likes of Karen." As the elderly woman outlined her plan, Emily and Jack felt a surge of renewed determination. They knew they were not alone in this fight, and with the support of their neighbors, they were more determined than ever to protect their farm from Karen's relentless crusade. In the following weeks, the neighborhood began to rally around Emily and Jack, determined to thwart Karen's scheming. Mrs. Perez had rallied the troops, and the residents of the community started to show up in droves to support the young farmers. Whenever a city inspector or a representative from the HOA arrived at the farm, they were greeted by a crowd of enthusiastic neighbors, each one ready to vouch for the farm's positive impact on the community. Karen's complaints were promptly dismissed, much to her growing frustration. "This is outrageous," she fumed, her perfectly coiffed hair slightly disheveled, as she stormed out of yet another meeting with the city. "Those people are deliberately undermining my efforts to maintain the integrity of this neighborhood." But the more Karen pushed, the more the community pushed back. Neighbors began organizing potlucks and farmers' markets at the farm, drawing even more attention to Emily and Jack's cause. The local media even caught wind of the story, and soon the farm was being celebrated as a beacon of sustainability and community spirit. Karen, her face twisted in a scowl, watched helplessly as her attempts to shut down the farm were thwarted at every turn. She had underestimated the power of the community, and her relentless campaign was starting to backfire in the most spectacular way. One day, as Karen was making yet another futile attempt to file a complaint, she was met with a wall of determined neighbors, each one wearing a shirt that proudly displayed the farm's logo. Mrs. Perez, her eyes twinkling with mischief, stepped forward and addressed the fuming HOA president. "Karen, I think it's time you accepted the fact that this farm is an integral part of our community. The more you try to shut it down, the more we're going to rally behind it. Maybe it's time you focused your energy on something more positive." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Karen, her face flushed with humiliation, turned on her heel and stormed away, defeated. Emily and Jack, their arms wrapped around each other, watched the scene unfold with a sense of relief and triumph. They knew that the battle was far from over, but with the unwavering support of their neighbors, they were more determined than ever to protect their beloved farm and the community it had helped to build. Defeated and humiliated, Karen retreated from her public crusade against the farm, but her determination to see it shut down only grew stronger behind the scenes. She began to scheme and plot, determined to find a way to exploit any loophole or technicality that could be used to her advantage. One day, as Emily and Jack were tending to the chickens, they received an unexpected visit from a city inspector. The man's expression was grave, and Emily felt her heart sink as he explained that a complaint had been filed regarding the farm's waste management practices. "I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to issue a citation," the inspector said, his voice tinged with regret. "According to the regulations, you're not in compliance with the proper disposal of animal waste. If you don't address this issue within the next 30 days, I'll have no choice but to shut down your operation." Emily and Jack stared at the inspector, their faces etched with disbelief. They had been so careful to follow every rule and regulation, and yet, somehow, Karen had managed to find a way to exploit a technicality. As the inspector left, Jack turned to Emily, his eyes filled with a mixture of frustration and determination. "We can't let her do this to us, Emily. This farm is our life, and we've worked too hard to let her take it away." Emily nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. "I know, honey. But what are we going to do? We don't have the resources to overhaul our entire waste management system in 30 days. The couple sat in silence, their minds racing, until a spark of inspiration struck Emily. "Wait, I think I have an idea. What if we reach out to the community again? Surely there must be someone who can help us with this." Jack's face lit up with hope. "That's brilliant, Emily. And you know who else might be able to help us." Emily followed his gaze to where Mrs. Perez was tending to the vegetable garden, and a mischievous grin spread across her face. "Let's go talk to her." Filled with renewed determination, Emily and Jack hurried to Mrs. Perez, ready to enlist her help in their fight against Karen's latest scheme. Mrs. Perez listened intently as Emily and Jack relayed the latest development in their ongoing battle with Karen. Her brow furrowed with concern, but her eyes sparkled with a glint of mischief. "Oh, that Karen," she hissed, shaking her head. "I should have known she wouldn't give up that easily. But don't you worry, my dears, we're not going to let her win this fight." The elderly woman patted Emily's hand reassuringly, her weathered face creasing with a warm smile. "Now, let's see what we can do about this waste management issue. I might just have a few ideas up my sleeve." Within the next few days, the community mobilized once again, rallying around Emily and Jack with a renewed sense of purpose. Mrs. Perez had reached out to her extensive network of contacts, and soon, a team of local experts descended upon the farm, ready to lend a hand. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, the farm underwent a remarkable transformation. Volunteers from the neighborhood worked tirelessly, upgrading the waste management system and ensuring that every aspect of the operation was in full compliance with the city's regulations. As the deadline approached, Emily and Jack watched with a mixture of relief and pride as the final touches were put in place. They knew that Karen would be fuming when she discovered that her latest attempt to undermine them had been thwarted. Sure enough, when the city inspector returned to reevaluate the farm's waste management system, he was met with a gleaming, state-of-the-art facility that far exceeded the minimum requirements. With a satisfied nod, he informed Emily and Jack that the citation had been rescinded, and their operation was now in full compliance. As the inspector left, Emily and Jack embraced, tears of joy streaming down their faces. They knew that the battle was far from over, but in that moment, they felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. Little did they know, however, that Karen was already hatching her next scheme, her eyes narrowed with a burning desire for revenge. The war between the HOA president and the young farmers was far from over, and the stakes were about to be raised once again. Karen, her face twisted with a mixture of fury and desperation, pored over the neighborhood's zoning regulations, her manicured fingers tapping furiously against the desk. She had been outmaneuvered by the community, but she was determined to find a way to take down the farm once and for all. As she scanned the pages, a sinister smile crept across her lips. "Aha! There it is," she murmured, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "I've got you now, you meddlesome farmers." Filled with renewed purpose, Karen marched into the city hall, her designer heels clicking against the marble floors. She demanded an immediate meeting with the zoning board, citing a grave violation that she claimed to have uncovered on the farm. The officials, taken aback by the HOA president's urgency, reluctantly agreed to convene a special session to address her concerns. Karen, her confidence bolstered, presented her case with a fervor that bordered on obsession. This farm is operating in direct violation of the zoning regulations, she declared, her voice dripping with self-righteousness. It's zoned as a residential area, and they're running a commercial enterprise without the proper permits. It's an outrageous abuse of the system, and it must be shut down immediately. The zoning board members exchanged uncertain glances, clearly unsettled by Karen's aggressive stance. They had seen the community's overwhelming support for the farm, and they were hesitant to take such drastic action without thoroughly investigating the matter. Mrs. Perez, we understand your concerns, but this seems to be a complex issue, one of the board members said, his brow furrowed with concern. Perhaps we could arrange a site visit to the farm to better understand the situation before making any decisions. Karen's face darkened with fury, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the palms of her hands. This is an open and shut case, she snapped. The regulations are clear, and these people are in blatant violation. I demand that you take action immediately. As the zoning board members deliberated, Emily and Jack, unaware of the impending crisis, continued their daily routines on the farm, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to descend upon them. The day of the zoning board's inspection dawned bright and clear, and Emily and Jack welcomed the officials onto their farm with open arms, eager to showcase their hard work and dedication. As the board members toured the property, they were struck by the vibrant energy and sense of community that permeated the place. The rows of lush vegetables, the well-cared-for chickens, and the smiling faces of the local volunteers all painted a picture of a thriving, sustainable enterprise. Karen, who had insisted on accompanying the inspection team, grew increasingly agitated as she witnessed the board's obvious fascination with the farm. Her carefully constructed case seemed to be crumbling before her eyes, and she could feel the tide of public opinion turning against her. Finally, the head of the zoning board cleared his throat, drawing all eyes to him. Well, Mrs. Perez, after a thorough review, we've determined that this farm is indeed operating in full compliance with our zoning regulations. In fact, we're impressed by the positive impact it's having on the community. Karen's face flushed with outrage, her pristine composure shattering. But, this is unacceptable. She sputtered, her manicured finger pointed accusingly at Emily and Jack. They're breaking the rules, and you're just going to let them get away with it. The head of the board fixed Karen with a stern gaze. Mrs. Perez, the only rule being broken here is your persistent harassment of these hard-working individuals. This farm is a valuable asset to our community, and we will not stand for your attempts to shut it down. As the zoning board members turned to leave, Emily and Jack watched in stunned silence, their hands clasped tightly together. They had weathered the storm, and emerging victorious, they felt a surge of pride and gratitude for the community that had rallied to their defense. Karen, her face a mask of defeat and humiliation, trudged away, her designer heels clicking against the gravel. She knew that her crusade had been thoroughly and utterly crushed, and that the young farmers had won the day. In the end, it was the power of the community, the unwavering determination of Emily and Jack, and the triumph of justice that prevailed. The farm, a symbol of resilience and hope, continued to thrive, serving as a beacon for a more sustainable and connected future.